great to be here. And to Colonel Gordon, to Colonel Kenny, thanks very much for setting this up and for your words too, Jeff. Great lead in, and I couldn't agree more. I really want to welcome the Dawson family, all the relatives, and to Robert too. Looking good there, man. It's going to be a party. Hey, I was asked a while back, hey, could you come and do this? And it was one of those things where I just said yes. And then we'll figure out calendars and stuff like that later on. It just doesn't matter. I'm gonna be here for this no matter what. And let me try to explain to you a little bit of why. You all remember what you were doing on 9/11? I can remember. That's one of those days. I mean, I've grown up, born in the 50s, end of the 50s, and I remember when President Kennedy was assassinated. I remember when Martin Luther King was assassinated. When Robert Kennedy was assassinated. I remember when Neil Armstrong stepped on the moon. All those things. And you can remember where you were at that point in time. On September 11th, I think we all who were around, we all know we all remember where we were on that day. For me, I had just taken over 1st Battalion, 5th Marine about a month prior to that. And it fundamentally changed the course of that battalion. I mean, I knew when 9/11 happened that things were going to be different for 1st Battalion, 5th Marines. At the same time, on the other coast, there was a young recruit at Parris Island, South Carolina, going through recruit training. Then recruit Dawson. And, it probably literally hit closer to home for him than anybody else, arguably, that was attending recruit training, because being a New York native, that really did hit close to, it hit home. It hit home. And and I think he at that time also knew that this was going to change the course of his future, and it did. It changed the course of his future. Fast forward a little bit, and then PFC Dawson reports in 1st Battalion, 5th Marines. Now, I'm going to tell you, when you're a battalion commander and you have 800 or 900 plus Marines, and eventually 1,200 when we were reinforced with everything that we had when we were in Kuwait, getting ready to go across the line of departure into Iraq. You don't get to really know all your Marines very well. You do get to know about 10% of the really, really good ones and 10% of the ones that are having problems. I'm happy to say that he fell into the group of the 10% that were really, really good ones. He's just one of those. He was one of those Marines that you just looked at him, you knew he got it. He got it. He was enthusiastic. He was committed. He internalized our core values. He was very trainable. He came in there with a lot of capability, but he also learned like a sponge. Took in everything. Had a lot of examples out there. A lot of senior Marines. A lot of senior, both officer and staff NCO and NCO, and he took everything he could because he knew he was going into harm's way. And so fast forward a little bit more, sure enough, we found ourselves in Kuwait, building up and getting ready to begin combat operations in support of the global war on terrorism. And that's really what it was. And so we're waiting there, and the combat power builds up, and we finally get the call. And I will tell you, absolutely nothing we did was deliberately planned. Nothing went according to plan. Not one thing. Not even going across line of departure. Hey, go now. And we were supposed to go the next morning, and we had prep fires and everything else, the air tasking order, everything was in support of our crossing line of departure the next morning. And all of a sudden I get back and I still have the yellow canary in my office saying, go now. We'll figure this out on the fly. We'll do quick fire planning. We'll just figure it out on the way, but we're going to go now. So, and from then on, absolutely nothing was it was all frag orders. All frag orders. And I will tell you that I could not be more proud, and it was something really to see that Marines can execute in a very decentralized way and respond to that kind of friction. And they executed knowing what they had to do without having to be told. That's the key. They knew what to do without having to be told. They made it happen. All the way up until when we finally made our final push into Baghdad, where that had the potential of being the worst disaster ever. And in reality, it all kind of came together at the end. And it didn't come together at the end because of the battalion commander, I can assure you. It came together at the end because every single Marine knew it needed to be done and did it, and they did it together. And he was part of that. In fact, a very big part of that. He went on to continue. So he went on to continue to serve in 1st Battalion, 5th Marines in OIF 2 in Ramadi, where he then was starting to move up and become a squad leader and leadership positions and so on. He demonstrated not only that he could follow, that he knew what to do individually, but he could get Marines to follow him. And he did a fantastic job in Ramadi, even to the point where he was putting his life in danger to be able to save other Marines, and to be able to make sure that that the battalion was successful. He then went on, as you know, as Colonel Kenny mentioned, two combat tours in Afghanistan, in the Garmshire and Marja districts. I mean, he did 2 combat tours there, and for which he received combat decorations. And he was wounded, as Colonel Kenny mentioned. I will tell you that I've read the summaries of action and the citations for 2 of the awards that he got there with combat Bs that he got there, and then of course his Purple Heart. And I will tell you that he got awards because not only was he leading Marines and saving Marines, but he was engaging the enemy personally. And he was locating, close-withing, and destroying the enemy himself, and leading Marines doing the same thing. That's what it's all about. That's who we are as a Marine Corps. He personified all that. He's also gone on to do things like be at OCS, training, being a combat instructor, and then being, as was mentioned, at the SOTG and the EOTG here, again, training Marines. So the bottom line there is there are hundreds of Marines that you've impacted over the course of your time, both in combat, saving them in combat, teaching them, leading them, and then instructing them when you were in tours at OCS, EOTG, and SOTG, instructing them. What General Dunford said in his last statement, the Marine Corps is better because of your service. That is no lie. The Marine Corps is better because, and there's no way that we can measure the Marines that are alive today because of you. And the other thing that Marines like Staff Sergeant Dawson has done, the other impact that he's had, is we've made it so that we've been able to fight this global war on terrorism as an away game. Okay, you know what I mean? We've been able to fight that abroad instead of having it here at home. We've been able to do that because you've been forward, you've been deploying, you've been fighting. And so the number of civilians, our citizens of this country that are alive today, we can't tally that up. But suffice to say that it's a pretty big number, I'm sure. Potentially a really big number. So there are many who would say that, oh, okay, he's being medically retired, too bad. You know, he could have gone on, and you could have. I mean, and I looked at you way back, when I looked into your eyes way back in 2002 and 2003, I saw that guy he could be a sergeant major someday or something else. He could be that guy. He could be leading this battalion. I saw all that in there. But you have left nothing undone. Your career is complete. You have done everything Marines are supposed to do, and then some. You've set the example. You really have. In combat, in the crucible of combat, and where we are measured, ultimately measured by how we lead and how we engage how we lead fellow Marines, serve with fellow Marines, and how we engage the enemy, and how we send them to Valhalla. And you've done all those things. So you have nothing left undone. You know, right now, the only challenge you have is, first of all, you're going to always be a Marine. That will never stop. You will always be a Marine. You're just going to be serving in a different way. I see, you know, maybe you'll be one of those guys with the red jackets. You know, I kind of want to see you in the red jacket. So when it happens, I want to see a picture and send it to me because I want to see that. But you know, it really kind of goes back to what General Krulak, Victor Krulak, three-star Victor Krulak, said about what the Marine Corps does for our nation. We take the young men and women of our society. They come in the Marine Corps and they are imbued with something. They are imbued with our values. And then when once imbued with those values, and when they leave active service and they go off into the civilian community, they go off, in your case, as a better man, as a better husband, as a better father, and as a pillar of your community. I know that that's going to be what happens. So you have nothing left undone in the active service of your country as a Marine. Now you're going to serve as a Marine, no longer on active duty, just being a pillar of your community. And I know that's going to be what happens. I wish you, and I wish you, Lisa, and Robert too, I wish you all the best. I wish you years of health and happiness. And I wish you fair winds, following seas, as you simply move on to the next event. God bless you, and Semper Fidelis. Hoorah.